Hello, welcome back to my channel. So today is a brush review video on Shaquda brushes. I'm very excited. So in this video, I'll go through each of the brushes that I chose, as well as show you some comparisons, give you my pros and cons list for each one of the brushes, and I'll have some demos inserted, as well as having this whatever I did on my face using these brushes today at the end, so there's more of a tutorial demo at the end as well. Let's go ahead and get this started. You guys, this is what my little 6 brushes look like. Aren't they just gorgeous? I mean, come on, with them all standing upright like little soldiers. And I have one other brush, 7 total, and this is from a different line. Shaquda brushes. I have been wanting Shaquda brushes for a few years now. I was just always obsessed with their aesthetic, beautiful, but shipping up there since they come from Japan. And when I saw that one of my favorite YouTubers, Michele Wang, brought some back from Japan and she was talking about how nice they are, I knew I had to have some. Because one of the biggest reasons I hadn't ordered any was because there wasn't really anything in English online about them and quite pricey, so yes. She gave me the assurance that I needed. And my friend Jody here on YouTube, she lives in my same area and also has a brush obsession. So I was like, hey Jody, you want to combine shipping since shipping costs $40 US from Japan? And she was like, sure. So we went ahead and placed an order together to split the shipping cost. Now we did order our brushes October 31st, shipped November 7th. We received the brushes on November 12th, and I have been using them every single day. I tried to get a whole variety and choose shapes and brush types that would fill holes in my collection. So while I will later be showing you comparisons and my most comparable brushes from other lines, I don't really have dupes per se. Absolutely beautiful. They have another line that I didn't order any brushes for, that's for hands and nose skincare brushes, and those are beautiful, but I was more interested in the makeup brushes. So with the beautiful walnut handles with no separate ferrules from the line UBU. All of these brushes come out to be the same height of 180 millimeters. So the handles themselves differ depending on the length of the bristles. This one is their 3D foundation brush from the line MISUMI, and it's their compact makeup brush line with the shorter squat handles. I have washed all 7 of these brushes already and have seen a little bit of fluff up from washing them, and I dried them upside down using a brush tree. But since a lot of these brushes are squirrel hair, blue or gray squirrel hair, depending what word you prefer, I will try to be washing these as little as possible to maintain the health of the brushes. So their concept is that they use their traditional handmade skills for making brushes in Japan, specifically from this one area that's very famous, and they've got updated, sophisticated designs, and they're environmentally friendly. Their website also talks about some of their inspiration is cocoons and gentle methods, as well as giving you an elegant and extraordinary space-time experience. So I don't know how helpful any of that was, but those were just some little things that I, read about on their website. Okay, so I'm going to talk about each of these brushes individually in the order that they have them listed on the site. Each brush has a number and a name to it. And the first brush that I got is the Soothing Face Brush Ubu 804. So like I said, each one of these Ubu brushes has a measurement of 180 millimeters total, and the bristle length for this brush is 36 millimeters. The bristles are gray squirrel, and this one retails for 13,200 yen. This is the most expensive brush that I bought. It's basically meant for all things powder. The website talks about finishing with this as well as highlighting. It's a rounded and tapered tip brush. So this gray squirrel brush hair quality is insanely soft, like incredibly soft. I would say it's even softer than my Surratt brushes, although it's, very, very close. So we're talking that quality. We're talking Chikuhodo is really known for their squirrel hair, and actually my closest brush I can compare it to, the brush that is the closest in my collection, is my Chikuhodo GSN 4 brush. They do have a different shape. The Chikuhodo is a bit wider, fluffier, rounder, and the Shaquda is more tapered and narrow. And as far as length goes, the Shaquda is a little bit shorter in length than the GSN line. You can see that here. As far as how soft it is, it's just comparable. Very, very, very similar. I would say that this particular brush is very multi-purpose. You can use this for setting, you can use it for blush, you can use it for highlight, you can use it for contour, for anything face, really. It's beautiful. The thing about these blue squirrel brush hairs is that it's very, very delicate and you can see wear very easily. It's not the best if you have super oily skin. Those oils are gonna deteriorate the brush hairs. A lot of people don't like to set liquid foundations with blue squirrel because of the same reason. They're very delicate. You want to keep them pretty dry. As far as shedding goes, I have seen a few hairs shed, maybe about 4 over the course of these weeks. Nothing too bad and nothing unexpected. It's very, very good quality. It has a lightweight feel to it. All of these do. It's surprisingly lightweight without taking away from the luxurious feeling at all. It does feel very luxe. The actual handle quality is super smooth and velvety to touch, and it's beautifully balanced. Gorgeous brush. I've had nothing but very easy application processes with this brush, and I would definitely pick this one up again if I were to go back and place my order again. It's one of my favorites from what I chose. Okay, like I said, my closest brush to compare it to is my Chikuhodo GSN 4, but I have a few other brushes that come close in shape and size. This one here is the Pro Contour brush from Sephora collection, number 79. It has a similar shape to the Shaquda. The Shaquda is much softer, although the Sephora collection can be a little bit more durable, probably in the long run. The actual size of the Sephora collection is smaller than the Shaquda. Another brush to compare this to is another Sephora collection one. This one has a very soft bristle type, and it's the Sephora collection number 90 featherweight complexion. It is bigger, denser, and more rounded. A little tiny Hakuhodo one has a similar shape as well. The Shaquda tapers from farther down for a smoother, rounder finish, and this one tapers from farther up. I don't remember the number of this guy, but it's their mini. This is the MISUMI X52, and it's, again, rounder, but not as wide from the start. Charlotte Tilbury Powder and Sculpt. This one is kind of messed up. It's not my favorite brush. It's not the softest, and it's got more of a point there, as you can see. My Smith 131. Again, this one is not nearly as soft. It's quite a bit rougher, and it doesn't taper from as far down, and it is smaller. This one I would say is more suitable for product types that are harder to pick up, and this one is more suitable for products that are easier to pick up, and it's for blending and more of a soft finish, and this one is more of like your full, more intense finish because of the rougher bristle type. Okay, so the next brush is an angled rounded brush called the Bright Up brush, and the number is 820. This one has a bristle length of 25 millimeters, so compared to the Soothing brush, you can see the size difference. This one here is also made from gray squirrel, but it's mixed with pony hair, and it's meant for face and eye powder products for highlighting, eyeshadow, setting, etc. This brush retails for 7,700 yen, and it's so fabulous. I love this brush. This brush is slightly more durable because it's also got that pony hair. It's still extremely soft. And I tend to grab for this for all types of things. For setting, it's the perfect size for right underneath the eye. That angle makes it so easy for that. I can contour with this on my nose, my lips, my cheeks, my jaw. I can highlight. It's such a useful multi-purpose brush. I find that this is really great for precision face products especially. I have used it for eyeshadow, but it's really large for eyeshadow. It's good for like Oliver Sweep. But I have another brush over here that's perfect for that, so I don't really grab for this for that. But precision face, perfect. It is kind of like a strange size, so if you want something that's really fast for all over, this is not it. If you're setting in precise areas, this is the way to go. It's fabulous. It is also delicate like the Soothing face brush because of the squirrel hair, but because of the pony hair, it's a little bit more durable. So I 100% love this brush. So good. I don't really have any dupes for this brush by any means. My closest comparable one would probably be my Surratt angled face brush. But as you can see, there's a really big difference in size. Hair on this is blue squirrel, so you have like the softness factor, a little bit of an edge on this guy, but this one's still very soft. It's very close. So far, I have been using this more than my Surratt lately. I think that this size really gives it an edge in my mind. The Surratt is pinched in the ferrule, and this one's completely rounded. Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of brushes like this, but the other ones that maybe are kind of similar is this MAC brush, this older MAC brush. I think it's number 138. It's rubbed off now. But as you can see, a huge size difference again. Also a pinched ferrule. This one is just very unique. And then the other two brushes I was going to compare it with, but are very different. This one is my Real Technique setting brush. Pretty much nothing like this other brush, except for size. And then this one is my Chikuhodo. This is the contour brush. I pulled this to show a comparison because it's got similar hair type, but yeah, as you can see, it's also rounded, but as you can see, it's very different. Much more squat and small, but it kind of covers a similar amount of facial space. This one's much denser. But that's all I really have to compare this with, honestly. It fills a hole in my collection for sure, and one that I just love using this for everything from highlighter, which is what I use it most for, to setting underneath the eyes, to contouring. It's fabulous. Okay, so the next brush I'm going to talk about is the touch-up brush, number 821, 5,500 yen, and the bristle length is 14 millimeters. It's all black, but I have product on it. The actual bristles are made of a mixture of synthetic fibers called PBT and goat wool. I don't have any other brushes, I believe, that is made out of that combination of material or of goat wool at all. that I know of, and it's kind of fabulous. This is so nice. It has this flat angle cut to it. Absolutely perfect for stamping on product and building up full coverage. You can buff and swipe, as you'll see in all the demos. It's very easy to use, and I love that fiber combination. It just picks up product nicely and lays it down nicely. Very pleased with this one. The one thing I will say is that it could be a little bit less intuitive maybe in function just because of this shape, but it's actually perfect for me because it's the perfect size to cover lupus rash spots. It's like not too small and not too big, but it can be sort of a con as well because it's not perfect for buffing in foundation all over. It's too small for that and too big for spot concealing over pimples and things like that. So it's definitely more for somebody like me who loves the size for underneath the eyes for brightening those areas and discolorations that are more patchiness than spots per se. And I primarily do use it with cream concealers and color correctors. I have built up powder using this, but I don't use a lot of powder, so I generally don't use a lot of powder, but I have done that with my Ket Cosmetics powder foundations before to just build up more coverage. Anything coverage related, it's perfect. It also does a great job spreading eye primer and things like that if that's something you're interested in. Any cream products on the eyes, this works really nicely too. It does remind me a bit of a couple brushes I own, including this one. This is the closest brush I have to this other one. It is the T38 from MISUMI. The size and everything is pretty similar cut. The MISUMI has longer bristles, a little less movement with the Shaquda than there is with the MISUMI. You can see I'm this one you can bend a little bit more because the bristles are longer. And the MISUMI is all synthetic, a little bit different. Similar feel, but yeah, the T38 has more like give to it because of the cut. There is a smaller version from the MISUMI line, the T37. You can see what the difference is here. Quite a bit smaller than the Shaquda. This one here is from Wet n Wild from one of their brush sets, but you can see it has a similar shape in case you have this one in your collection already. Again, synthetic, similar give, but the Shaquda is a lot firmer and has more spring to it, whereas the Wet n Wild is a little bit floppier, a little bit less dense. So this one here was from another set. This was from the Sephora Collection limited edition set. This one has a dip in the middle. It makes for not the easiest brush to use in general because there's a significant dip in the middle, and it has a dual fiber situation where the tops here are much less dense and then there's a denser core underneath. Pretty different, but also comparable in case you have this one in your collection. I do much prefer this over this. This one's just not the easiest brush to use. Two more brushes. So another Sephora Collection. This one is from their Pro line, the Pro Concealer number 71. It has a pinched ferrule and is a flat concealer brush with this taper to it. You can get similar application with this brush, but it's definitely more of a one-directional type of brush. Like you wouldn't go the opposite way and you wouldn't necessarily buff with this brush, whereas this one you absolutely could use it in all directions. So again, a little bit more useful in my opinion, although this one is really great for shearing out product. And then my last comparison. So this is an Up and Up complexion brush. I mean, I'm always used to saying complexion brush after Up and Up because that's my favorite Up and Up brush. But this is an Up and Up brush that's meant more for concealing, things like that. And again, it's a denser type of brush. It's got a little bit more of a domed shape to it, a little bit smaller. Really pretty though. It's a nice brush in general. But again, this one is flatter and larger. So those are my most comparable brushes to this particular touch-up brush from Shaquda. But again, I think that it's very unique, very different, and it has that wool that just has a very different feel. I'm really loving how unique these brushes are to my collection. Absolutely beautiful. The handle itself feels kind of long, mostly because there's no ferrule, so nothing dividing up the look of the brush, so it looks longer, nothing cutting through it. The actual part with the bristles is so short, so it sort of feels like a longer handle brush, when in actuality it's really not awkwardly long or anything like that. It's a really beautifully proportioned brush, just a little bit different. Okay, so the next brush is called the Sheer Eye Brush with the number 822. This one is beautiful. It's a squirrel hair brush, 7,700 yen with a 20mm length to the bristles. This is a gorgeous brush, but it is sort of different because it's very large for being an eye brush. Look at that. I have a lot of sort of space to work with, but it covers the whole entire thing. If you're considering this and you have smaller eyes and you want it for eye application, this is going to cover everything all at once. And that's what I love about it, but that's also what makes it very different from most Western eye coloring application. The process is very different. This is like a soft sweep of color type of situation. You can also set underneath the eyes with this. That's like the perfect size and shape. Absolutely beautiful. But I love this for all things eyes, because it offers something completely different than anything else in my collection. It's great for highlighting under the brow bone, for sweeping all the way across the lid. It's just a sheer wash of color like the name would suggest. This is what it does, sheer washes of color, and it does it beautifully. The closest shadow brush I have to this is probably the Chikuhodo eyeshadow brush, because it's also squirrel and it's larger, but even that is smaller than the Shaquda and it has shorter bristle lengths. This one has a lower tapering, so it has that paddle effect, whereas the Chikuhodo is more of a C shape, as you can see here. The Chikuhodo is not quite as fluffy as the Shaquda. And here's how the brush handles compare. So they are quite different, and I do love the Shaquda. That it's become a new favorite for sure for being so different. I do have a few others to compare it with. The second closest, even though the bristle type is different, is my Sable Hair MISUMI W25 brush, and you can kind of see how those compare. The Sable Hair picks up a lot stronger, a more even and full coverage application than the Shaquda with this Sable Hair. So to me, they're very, very different. Delium Tools 778. Smaller, not nearly as soft. Very, very different. Also, this one is quite a bit stiffer. Real Techniques. So this is from their metal collection, and it's their number 200 eyeshadow brush. And you can see how those compare. The Shaquda has a taper. This one is a lot more flat-topped. Similar fluff. Very different feel. This one is dense. Pretty dense compared to the Shaquda. Very handy. Much relied upon. Chikuhodo GSN 9. Again, I believe this Chikuhodo one is squirrel hair, so similar material, but very different size. And in my opinion, very different application technique with this. So those are the comparisons for the Sheer Eye Brush. I think that this one wouldn't, well, I'm very much happy to have it. and it's very useful for me. But if I were to recommend to the average consumer, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this one. I would recommend more of their face brushes, because as you'll see with these other eye brushes, they're kind of for specific uses, whereas the face brushes I think are a little bit more easier as a Western consumer with how most of us apply makeup. Like even if you're a fast and easy type of person, this one is very large for the normal eye shape. So it's beautiful, and I'm very happy I have it because it works for me. But in general, this wouldn't be the one to get if you're asking me. So this one here is the 823 blending eye brush for 5,500 yen, and it has a 17 millimeter length to the bristles. It's also made of squirrel, and it's great for eye and face, anything powder, eyeshadow, highlighting, etc. The great thing about this, again, is how soft it is, incredibly soft. But I will put this at a lower rating as far as all the brushes I got because of how pointed it is. It's beautiful. It looks beautiful, but that point, man, it throws me off. Like it's definitely trickier for me to use than most eye brushes, because that point is so precise and it's not going anywhere. There's no buffing shadow out with this. It's not my favorite blending brush, as the name would imply. It's more of a place the product down type of brush for me. And I'm going to compare this to, I have 5 brushes. The closest brush to this in my collection, I would say, is my MISUMI S33. And this is how they compare. Again, this one is quite large for the average eye. The S33 is a little bit smaller. It is a lot easier to use, the S33, because you're really able to blend with this softer taper. This point, this harsh point, is just, it doesn't lend itself to blending shadow. It lends itself for, if you think of like a calligraphy brush, it's very good at getting a wider area and then a little flick. So you can do a soft, smoky, large wing with this. And my favorite use for this is getting into the outer corner or placing, holding the brush like this, placing an inner corner product. You can build up product easier with this than you can with the sheer eye brush, but it's very precise and not for scumbling motions at all. So maybe not my favorite brush from the line, but still happy to have it. It's beautiful. Another brush to compare it with, again, I think this other one is easier to use. This is my Hakuhodo S146 that I use a ton. A similar length and bristles, but much narrower and not quite as pointed. So, I mean, it does have a point, but it's not quite as much of this really pointed angle. This one is, again, easier for me to use, easier to blend. Round ferrules, both of them. Another reason the Hakuhodo is similar is because it's also squirrel hair. So it has that similar soft factor, and strictly for powder. So this is the Sonia G Blender Pro. You can see the difference. The Sonia G has a longer bristle length by just a smidge, and it's wider to the top. This has more resistance, the Sonia G does, than the squirrel hair. 2 Wang brushes that are dirty. I apologize. All of these brushes are dirty because I use them. The Wang number 17 is this larger one, and the Wang number 19 is the smaller one. And again, these are rounder than this very pointy Shaquda. So you can see that there, the length of the handles and how they differ. So online, when I was looking at these, in the model's hand, they really looked awkwardly long. And it's just because Japanese brushes tend to have the shorter length for personal use, but it's quite a bit shorter than the Lab Eye brushes. So I wouldn't let the length of the handle, if you were thinking the same thing I wouldn't let that deter you because they're not awkwardly long. I think the model they used just had small hands. Okay, so the last of the Ubu line is one of my favorites. This is similar to the one I just showed you, but smaller and has a different bristle type. And I prefer this one, and let me share with you all the information before I get into why I prefer it. The Smoky Eye Brush, number 824, 4,400 yen. It has a 10 millimeter length in bristle, and it has pony hair. It's for eyes and eyebrows, and you can use them for powders or creams. And the reason I love this eye brush is because of this unique bristle type. The pony hair bristle type is so different from anything else I have. It's spongy, it has bold application. Literally, it's like you're applying with a sponge tip applicator, but nicer. It's beautiful. It's a great size for the inner corner, for the lower lash line, for creating a smoky eye, for smudging out a wing. It's stunning. It's a stunning brush. Absolutely beautiful. I love everything about it. The bristle type is amazing, the size, everything. The only complaint I have is because of how this ferrule, it's not a ferrule, but you know what I mean, this part here that holds the bristles is so much wider than the actual brush. It can sometimes mess with how I see the brush in the mirror. That's my only complaint, is that this part is so bulky that sometimes I have some trouble seeing where I'm actually applying my product. So this is why I wouldn't recommend this brush particularly for the kids, but I do think on yourself you can feel where it's applying it. It's the MAC 219 pencil brush, and as you can see here with the metal ferrule, it's much slimmer, so that's not an issue. But it is narrower. It doesn't have the same amazing application as the Shaquda. And then I've got the Sonia G Pencil Pro. Again, slimmer ferrule, but it has a rounder tip. The eyeshadow brush from Chikuhodo. This one is my most similar. But this one has squirrel hair, so it's very soft and has a lot more give. It doesn't have that spongy feel. Like if I close my eyes, I almost feel like it's a sponge tip applicator. It's very different. It's very different. I mean, clearly it has bristles to it, but I would definitely repurchase this one if I were to go back and do it all over again. Okay, so the last brush I'm going to talk about is the foundation brush that I chose. This one is called the 3D foundation brush, and it has a 95 millimeter total length with a 20 millimeter bristle length. Costs 6,050 yen and has goat wool, PBT, synthetic fibers, and ash. You can use it for powder, cream, and liquid. When I first got it, obviously it's been used, but it had this really, really pale gray coloring to the bristles. It's beautiful. The whole thing is just absolutely beautiful with the soft triangular shape to the soft dome and angle. A gorgeous, soft, useful brush all around. I have very little negative to say, if anything at all, about this brush. It's very multi-purpose, multifunctional. You can do all kinds of things, and it's soft enough for underneath the eyes, which this expensive one from Surat is not soft enough for underneath my eyes, not at all. Might as well start the comparison, right? So this one is the Surat foundation brush compared to this one. They both have a slight angle to it. This one's flat topped and a little bit more dual fibery in format. And this one is denser and softer. I definitely prefer this one. Another one to compare it to is the Hourglass. This one is much shorter. than the Hourglass. They both have a soft angle to them, but the Hourglass is round all the way around. The Hourglass has been one of my favorites for a long time for really moving and buffing product in. You can really use that patting in motion with both of these. If I had to choose just one, it's hard to say. It's very hard to say. I really like the shape of this one. It's a little smaller, so I can do contouring and blush and highlight with this a little more precisely than I can with the Hourglass. I mostly use this for foundation, whereas this one I've been grabbing for all kinds of things. Another one to compare it with was this Cheek Hug brush from Charlotte Tilbury. This one is very different. It's got this sofa-like shape. It's much larger. There isn't a whole lot to say about this one. It's synthetic. It's really soft and velvety, but it is different. And then I wanted to compare it to this very different Chikuhodo brush. It has the same sort of coverage, like it would cover about the same amount of skin if you just like put it down onto your skin, but this one is a soft paddle like shape, and this one has that unique shape to it. Shiseido. So this is another angled brush, flat top though, a little bit squared off flat top like the touch-up brush. This one has that soft rounded dome feel to it. So again, this one I love using with concealer, foundation. I haven't really found it to be that useful for setting with powder because it applies a little bit too full coverage for my taste with that, with my dry skin. But if you have oily skin, this could be a really great one for packing on the powder. I use it for highlighter, bronzer, all kinds of things, and liquids and creams mostly. Shaquda engraving, really pretty. The whole thing is just very aesthetically pleasing as well as very functional and useful. The only thing I will say about this is this line right here is meant to be their compact brush line. So if I am going to take this on the go, it would have been nice for it to be retractable or have some kind of sleeve that would protect the bristles and the shape, as well as protect from debris and from getting it dirty. That's my only thing. I don't mind because I like to just have it sitting here ready for me to use and not so much for taking on the go. But if I were to take this on the go, I would be concerned about damaging it. Okay, now that we've gone through all the details for each one of these brushes, what I think, if I were to rate these brushes, I would say this one is my favorite, the Bright Up. Second would be the Soothing Brush, very useful. And third would be the Smoky Eye Brush. The foundation brush I consider to be different from the whole ranking system because it's a different line, but I would recommend this. Each one of these brushes has beautiful, flawless quality. I think they're definitely worth the money. It's just a matter of functionality at that point. So without further ado, if you would like to see how I created this look and hear me talk through the order in which I use these brushes and what I think as I'm using them, then just keep on watching. Okay, I know you guys saw little clips of me using the brushes as I was reviewing the brushes, but I figured I would show you a step-by-step sort of situation since I went in order that the site provided the brushes in. I wanted to show you that I don't necessarily use them in that order, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna start with the foundation brush. Actually, I know I told you guys I use this for all kinds of things, which is true, but I'm gonna use this with my Surratt Dewdrop foundation in the color 3. I'm still using some of my samples that I collected from Blue Mercury, and I'm going to mostly apply foundation on my cheeks. I don't need a whole lot of coverage today, so one little dash should be good for redness, etc. And what I love about this brush, as I said already, is that I can use it for so many different things in so many different ways. Right now I'm just patting to build up coverage right around my spotty cheek area. And I'm gonna use a swiping motion where I need less coverage to spread the product. And it's so soft and it's not overly slippery soft like some synthetic brushes are. Sometimes I see a little bit of streaking because with these hairs it has a good grip to them. Not too much, but if I ever do see some streaking, I like to use a little buffing circular motion. I think it applies the product in a way that makes my skin look smoother. And you can really build up coverage by patting with this thing. It's very dense. Soft enough for right underneath the eyes. The only other thing I have on my face already is a little bit of eyeliner, the Lancome eyeliner. And I find that product doesn't build up on the bristles too much, so that's great. It depends, like I'll do my eyes first or my foundation first. What it depends on is whether or not I think I'll have fallout on the eyes, and I don't think I will today, so I'm gonna do the eyes next. I grabbed my Makeup Forever Step 1 base. I'm gonna put this on the eyes. For eye primer, I just use my fingers, but you can actually use this touch-up brush to apply eye primer pretty easily. Perfect if you have long nails or something. So I'm just smoothing that all the way around. I think for eyeshadow, I'm gonna use my Huda Beauty Mauve Obsessions mini palette. I'm gonna start with my sheer eye brush. This color, it's matte. This is squirrel hair, so it's gonna apply it nice and softly. Quite a large size. It's like a paddle shape, so it's very different. Apply it all the way across. Definitely not for precise application. It's a nice wash of color. If I use the side, I can buff that top edge. And more of a blending motion. I'm gonna take this same brush and go into this shimmer here and tap that right over the center of the eye for a wash of shimmer. It's so soft and it just feels like a feather on the skin. I'm gonna take a little bit of this one up here. It's a little bit lighter and just give it a little bit more of a pop. And then the lightest one, tiny bit. And the great thing about these types of brushes is there won't be much pigment at all left on the brush after you use it. It's very easy to not have to keep washing it and drying out the bristles. Fabulous. I'm going to go ahead and take my blending eye brush and use this for the outer V. I'm going to use the deep red. It's such a pointy brush. It's a little bit tricky for me. Swipe it upward from the lash corner up and then right on the side here. Oop, I did get a little bit of fallout. My bad. Gives quite the definition, but I don't love blending with this. So once again, I'm going to go back to my sheer eye brush and just blend that edge. I'm going to take my pony hair pencil brush and go into this color up here and push that into the lash line. So I'm just smudging it along the lash line, giving that smoky effect like the name would suggest. I'm going to take this color, deepen that out a little bit. The mauve color we started with, bring that onto the lower lash line. just obsessed with this brush, by the way. Wiping off the excess pigment from the bristles, I'm going to take the lightest color and pick up enough to highlight the inner corner. And jumping back to my sheer eye brush, I think I want to highlight underneath the brows a little bit, this cream color. I think that looks nice. Taking a little bit of the light shimmer, going to pop that right in the center here, just a tiny bit. And I'm going to go ahead and conceal using my touch-up brush, using the Charlotte Tilbury color corrector. Any concealer would be perfect with this brush. And I like to use a little stamping motion to build up coverage. It's pretty fabulous, to be honest. I'm just going to use a little bit of this. I kind of went at my skin getting this little flake thing off, so I lost some of that foundation I put earlier because I was determined to get that off. I think I've been having all kinds of issues today. I like to use like a little circular buffing motion around the edges and pat right where I want a little bit more coverage. I'm going to do a little bit of cream bronzing and cream contouring. For the cream bronzer, I'm taking my Chanel and the foundation brush and just giving that a quick little swirl in that product. And I'm going to generously apply all over to give a bit of warmth. It's just so simple and easy, like it's very... I put a bit on my forehead to warm up the skin, a bit on my nose. And then for the cream contouring, I'm pulling out my Tom Ford cream contour. I'm just going to do a quick swipe across and apply that right where I like to have contour. And then to highlight with creams, this does a really great job as well. Use a little patting motion. For setting, I've been liking this Bright Up brush. Here's my Charlotte Tilbury powder. I'm just going to set right where I concealed. It's a little small for all over setting. Perfect for dry skin types, I think, because you don't always set everywhere. Just mattify certain areas. The Soothing Brush. So I love to use this with bronzer and blush. I pulled out my NARS Hot Tryst blush palette and I'm going to use this blush down here. This brush is so incredibly soft. It's beautiful. I like to press it in first and then use a little circular motion. And with my Physicians Formula Summer Eclipse Moonlight Bronzer, I'm going to use the Soothing Brush again. Lightly go over everywhere I bronzed earlier. For powder highlight, I'm going to use the Bright Up brush, this one here, from the NARS palette. And softly highlight. This is a very effective highlighter brush. So that's it for these brushes. I'm going to throw on a lip and brows, and I'll be right back. Okay guys, so I hope that this video was useful for you if you've been considering some new Japanese made brushes. I would love to hear in the comment section down below what some of your favorite brushes are from this line or elsewhere. Join the CakeFaceFam by subscribing if you haven't already, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye, love bugs.